So today is going to be more so a conversation. We're going to talk about Furuta and how I feel about him throughout the entirety of the story and how he plays this evil but not so coherently evil role in the entirety of Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re. One of the biggest things that I loved about Furuta as a character, as a villain, as anything surrounding Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re was the fact that he was so mysterious. Even by the end of the story, there is still so much mystery surrounding his character that you just get this sense of, I want more. I want more of Furuta. I want to know what he means, what he stands for. You get a very small portion of this throughout the entirety of the story, and especially at the end of the story, where you get some pretty big, I guess, revelations for his character. You get some reasoning on why he is doing the things that he is doing. In my mind, Furuta is not the big bad villain of the story. A lot of people think this. He's the person that rivals Kaneki. He's the person that's doing all these evil things. But in reality, it's a lot more intricate in design. I put Furuta and Kaneki on the exact same playing field. Two characters that are thrown into a world of misery and tragedy, forced down a narrow path with no deviation, that are trying to obtain their own personal goals, that are pushing their own personal agendas to better themselves and potentially even others. The biggest difference between Kaneki and Furuta is one, Kaneki is obviously our main character, so we're going to lean over onto his perspective and his morality a lot more compared to Furuta. But two, Kaneki's ideology, his momentum, his thought process, and how he wants to achieve his personal goals also includes the nature of the entirety of the Ghoul race. The betterment of the Ghoul world, basically. He wants to uproot evil, whereas Furuta is a lot more specific in himself. He wants to achieve something that is only for him. Now I'm going to tell you why this is very, very important to realize about Furuta's character, because as similar as Kaneki and Furuta are, they stand for two completely different things, especially because they come from two completely different backgrounds. Furuta is a character that has been forced since day one down a path that he did not want. And you only realistically find out about this at the very end of Tokyo Ghoul Re. At the end of the story, this was very beautifully done with a fight between Kaneki and Furuta having these flashbacks of a future that he was trying to build. He was having these visions of something that was ultimately getting cut away from him because he quote-unquote lost to Kaneki. Even the final words from Furuta before his departure and death in the story was very emotional. It made you feel for his character. It made you understand him a lot more, and it made Kaneki realize that Furuta is not as bad as everyone pictured him to be. He may have done some very evil things, but everyone in this world has done evil things, and that is kind of the whole point of Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re in its entirety. There is no good nor evil in the world. I think Kaneki felt a heavy realization with Furuta. You know, him revealing his past and, you know, the history with Rize and the future that he really wanted to bring. You know, the whole reason why Rize was resurrected to begin with, the whole dragon concept was born of the ideology that Furuta wanted Rize to himself, that Furuta wanted a life that he could personally live, something that he has never had the choice to make himself. I cannot call Furuta evil because he wanted to fight for his own ideals, his own motives, his own future, considering he has been raised and molded and skewered into this being that is not himself. Hence his entire anger and desperation to obliterate the Washu family completely. The family that manipulated him and controlled him to walk this path with no deviation. It's coherently sad when you think about Furuta's ideals, what he really wanted, and how he got to that point. Seeing that final fight between Kaneki and Furuta, seeing how desperate Furuta was in trying to achieve everything, trying to overcome this final hurdle, which was Kaneki himself, to ultimately being cut down and seeing everything that is moments away from happening, you know, the future that he's always envisioned, be completely slashed down by his quote-unquote enemy, by the person that's been stopping him. I'd guarantee that if this was a story about Furuta, him being the main character and his perspective trying to resurrect Rize and kind of push for a future that he's always wanted, that Kaneki would be depicted as this big bad evil villain. In my eyes, it's a very beautiful thing to see how far Furuta came and how strongly he fought for the things he wanted. He was desperate, he was obsessed, he was desperate, and he was willing to do absolutely anything to get closer to his ideals, to get closer to this concept that he's always wanted. Like I said, I cannot be mad at Furuta. I don't think he's as evil as everyone paints him to be. Yes, he has done evil things, but like I said, the whole concept of Tokyo Ghoul is that there is no good nor evil. You know, Kaneki has also technically done evil things, and they may not be malicious on purpose, but the guilt that Kaneki faced after he became Dragon, which was ultimately never realistically played upon, but I believe personally left this massive impact on him. At the end of the story, especially with the fight between Kaneki and Furuta in the final chapter, we found Kaneki being a little bit neutral. He was very accepting. He was not emotionless, but he didn't really care all too much. He just wanted things to end, and I think he was happy doing so, even if it cost him his own life. Seeing that final moment with Furuta and how they appealed to one another and the journey that they've both faced, it reminded me heavily of like a Naruto Sasuke situation. Two beings being thrown into a world that is completely unknown to them, being forced down a narrow path that, you know, they cannot deviate from whatsoever, and them kind of finding comfort in one another. Their goals may be completely different, but they are trying to fight for something that's personal for them. They're trying to fight for something that is meaningful, for something that is worth living for, which is one of the most important things. Furuta had his weakness. I think there's a lot of things that could have been played upon a lot more with Furuta, especially teasing a lot more of his background. We only got a very small portion of it. There could have been a lot more interaction between Kaneki and Furuta on a more personal level. Stuff to kind of just not completely flesh out Furuta, but help kind of lead to that final encounter, that final fight that kind of revealed everything about him and what he was trying to do. It's because it made him feel so emotional. Even though it was all kind of just dumped onto us in this final bit to kind of finish off and conclude Furuta, in my opinion, it was very emotional and well done. I'm not even mad that it was kind of just forced down our throats to that extent. That is what happens when you have a very mysterious character and you try and keep it that way throughout the entirety of the story. It's meant to be a shock. It's meant to be a massive reveal, and that's what we got. It's even more important if people actually felt sorry for Furuta, because that was Ishida's job well done. I felt sorry for Furuta. I really did. And I think that's kind of the beauty of his character, and I think that's what people fail to realize, is that Furuta is just another cog in the wheel. He wasn't this big bad arch nemesis that controlled the world. No, he was just a normal person that could have potentially had a somewhat normal life, but was so manipulated and skewered and warped to become something he couldn't, to become something he didn't want to be. He was forced to uphold this ideology that wasn't his own and felt like he had to achieve everything himself because he had no one to rely on. And when he did rely on people, they would fail him and it would break him. Think of Furuta as some sort of a polar opposite to Kaneki. They are somewhat in the same boat, more or less. You know, they're both in the same ocean, in the same boat, but Kaneki is above the water and Furuta is below. They're both fighting their demons, they're both thrown into a world of misery and tragedy unbeknownst to them, and they are both fighting for something that is extremely personal and something that they're willing to die for. It's very symbolic, it's very beautiful, and it's kind of why I love Furuta as a character, especially as a villain, because it makes him feel relatable, it makes him feel alive. He's not just evil because he's evil, he actually has intentions, he has morality, he has things that he is scared of losing. They might not have been played upon to the fullest extent, but I am very much happy with how Ishida approached Furuta as a character, as a villain, as Kaneki's arch rival, as his polar opposite, and being one of those core pillars to uphold the core concept of the Tokyo Ghoul narrative, and that is that there is no such thing as good and evil, and that ghouls are pictured to be a minority, and these ghouls will continue to be demonized, continue to be subjugated, unless they fight for what they want. They don't want to lay down and die, die. They don't want to lay down and give up. They want to fight. They want to be alive. They want to be treated equally with respect. And they deserve to be. And that's the moral of the story. And Furuta is a core pillar surrounding that ideology. And so is Kaneki. And I think Furuta was a incredibly well done character that people can feel emotion for. That people can relate to. Someone that was pictured to be the big bad villain of the story is not so much different to our main character. So that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed just a little conversation talking about Furuta and how I feel about him. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you feel about Furuta and, you know, his purpose in the story, and that's basically it. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.